Hello everyone, Dave here. Today we are going to be taking a look at Rise of Tribes from Breaking Games, designed by Brad Brooks. Okay, I have the game kind of in progress in a 3-player game to show you how things are going to work, but at the beginning of each game, players are going to choose a player color and they're going to take all of their player pieces, and they're also going to take their goal deck. And all of the gold decks are the same for each player. We're going to shuffle them up and place it face down in front of us. And then there are two different types of cards. We have basically things that are going to be conditional stuff, and then there's going to be these developments that are going to give us advantages through the game, and they're going to be worth a number of victory points. They're going to help us progress through the game. So we have some things that are in progress for this player, and then depending upon where you are in turn order, and turn order is determined by drawing numbers of these villages, players will initially seed the board. But here we are with the game in progress, and the way that this game is going to be driven is going to be by selecting different actions. So we have grow, move, gather, and lead. And the different symbols on the dice there, it's going to affect the strength of the actions. So if we look at, if we don't have anything that's a matching pair of the 3 dice up there, for example in grow, we'd be able to put 3 of our people on the board. If there are 2 moons out there, then we would only be able to put out 2 of our people, and if we had 2 suns, there would be 4. And it's going to be the same for moving. Sometimes we'll be able to move more or less. Gathering, we'll be able to get more or less resources, and leading, we'd be able to draw more or less development cards or goal cards. And so what's going to happen, we also have events that will be in play, and those are going to be triggered on a player's turn. What they're going to do is they're going to take these 2 dice and they're going to roll them, and we have a blank and a sun. If I were to roll doubles on here, we would trigger an event. I'll just show you another one. This is plentiful food. Place 6 food on this card. If you gather from lake hexes, take 2 extra resources from this card. For each hex you gather food from, and then when this discard when it's empty. So we'd fill this up with fish, and if people gather on there, they'll be able to take extra ones, and then this would go away. We have room for 2 active events, and then if we have doubles that trigger them, we will, if there's an open space, we'll be able to add them. Now there are other ones that are going to be affected by doubles too. For example, this dugout canoe, pay 3 wood to acquire the dugout canoe, which would be this token right here. This is going to give you an ability to be able to travel through lake hexes for free, so it won't count as movement. But every time you roll doubles, we'll add wood to reduce its cost, so it's going to make it cheaper. But if you do have 3 wood on here, eventually the dugout canoe will no longer be available. So we have a couple of events in play, and we have a couple of events that were set aside at the beginning of the game, and as soon as a player builds their first village, these would be shuffled in. So for the sake of argument, these 2 are shuffled in there. Now, let's get back to these dice. So players have to make a choice, and it's the blue player's turn right now. They have to make a decision as to what they're trying to do. We've amassed a large population of people on this desert space. We have control of the deserts over there. Actually, I'm sorry, those would be mountains. And so we want to be able to make sure that we want to control those, because we happen to have a majority in mountains thing that we're going to, or a goal that we're going to want to try and complete at the end of our turn, which looks like we will be able to do. Actually, I should have scored this at the end of our last turn, but for the sake of this demonstration, I want to show you how this works. So the first thing that we need to do, I think we want to look at gathering up some resources. So what I'm going to do is use this this sun, and we're going to work on the gathering space. And how this is going to work is I'm going to add this, and it's going to push 1 off the end. So this one comes off, and we just slide it down to this space below it to show that it's being active. Now, when we have 2 suns, we are going to be able to gather 2 resources each from 3 different hexes. So let's take a look on the board and see where we're at. And this is going to be kind of neat because we have that one event with the plentiful food that has 6 food on there. We actually have one of our players is on a lake space, and we also have wood and we have desert. So we should probably try to take 2 from each. So we will go ahead and gather resources. We have these different chips over here. So we will take 2 resources from the mountains. We will take 2 resources from the one forest terrain that we're on, and we're going to also take 2 fish from the lake tile. Now, with the plentiful food, because we harvested from a lake tile, which is what it said, we will take 2 extra resources from here. So we'll pull 2 off there. And now, all of a sudden, we have a bunch of extra goodies in front of our thing. So on our turn, let's go back to here. What I should have done, I'm sorry, was the beginning of the turn where we had built stuff. We should have scored 1 point for a village because we had constructed a village previously in the turn. We have 1 guy left here, so we need to protect this. Maybe need to move some more people in so we don't lose it. So we would score 1 point, and it would go up on the board. And then the next thing we would have done is rolled our dice, which we did, and we are going to take our actions, which is where we are at right now. So we have this blank die, and I think what I need to do is move. So I want to be able to move some more people, and right now it's weak. We can only move 2 because there's 2 moons. So let's push this out and push down here. So we'll be able to have 4 movement. We can move each figure up to that, up to 1 space. So I need to move, we're going to go 1, 2, and we will go 3. And we're going to hold that position. I'm not going to use 4th movement. And we are going to then, so that's what we've done. Now, next thing we need to do is look to see if we are going to have any conflicts that we're going to resolve. Right now, we are not. We have a hex limit of 5 people on there, and we have not triggered that. And the next thing that we're going to do is be able to build villages and complete goals. So the blue player needs 3 food, 2 wood, and 1 stone to build a village. Well, we have those resources right here. We'll have our 3 food, 2 wood, and 1 stone. So we'll turn those all in. And we will take one of these village tokens and we will place it on a space where we have our people. So let's build a village back here. So at the beginning of our next turn, if it's still there, we will score a point. And the other thing that we're going to do is let's complete one of our goals. This says the majority in the mountains, majority in 3 mountain hexes. Right now we have the majority in 3 of those, so we're going to score 3 points. So we'll move up the track, 1, 2, 3 points. And this will now move over into our completed goals. So just wanted to show you how those different types of things work. Now let's get into a conflict situation. So like I said, we have a section where we have the majority is going to be 5. Now, we're looking at, let's say that it is the yellow, well, we have the red player to deal with, but let's say we're skipping over to the yellow player's turn. And they're going to decide to go all in and try to eliminate this one particular section and get rid of this village that the blue players have. So on their moves thing, let's say that they had a move action where they can move 4 people in there. They're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4 and make a massive assault on this particular space. Now the way that conflict is going to work, we're going to start by simultaneously removing 1 of each color until only 1 color remains. So we'll take a blue and a yellow off, we take another blue and a yellow off, we take another blue and a yellow off, we now have these two yellow figures are going to remain in space. This was a village that the blue player had built. Since there is no more blue people there, this goes off the board, reducing their ability to score 1 point on their turn. So basically that's how the conflict works. And you can also actually have a time when you have 5 of your own meeples on one space and you move one in and you'd have to reduce your own. So really, really interesting conflict aspect. So essentially, that's how the game is played. We're going to be adding people on. When we grow, we're adding people on the board. When we add people, we have to add them to spaces where we already have one. So if yellow decided to the next turn now, because they lost some people, they're going to maybe want to repopulate, but now we've spread ourselves to where we only have 2 spots to come from. If there's ever a time when all of your players are eliminated, you're going to choose 2 and put them on a space. Choose 2 of your figures and place them on a space to come back on the board. So you're never really you're not out of the game ever. But for example, over on red, if they decided to grow, they can add to any space that they already have people on. So depending on if they have a massive growth or not, if they're doing a restricted, maybe they can only add 2. Maybe we want to bolster that one over here. Maybe we want to start beefing this up because we need to protect a village over there. So different things to talk about. So let me give you some some thoughts on this as we showed you how to play the game. But this is a very, very, very simple rule set for this game. There are some really cool events that come out that are going to affect how to play. For example, if somebody gets this this canoe, now what happens is we can, for one movement, this one could actually jump all the way up to here because they can cut through that water. And depending upon the board layout, you could gain a lot of ground just by that, by having that dugout canoe. And with this random board layout, it's going to affect how each game is going to play differently. We just happened to be lucky that these mountains were all clustered together. If the mountains were spread out, work would be a little bit more difficult to try to get this majority. You know, just like with the yellow player, they had an in-progress goal to have the majority in 3 forests. Well, you see what other players' goals are in play, and so the red player has decided to fortify the forests to make it very difficult for the yellow player to be able to do that. And also, they're trying to beef up their chances of getting lucky and drawing one off the top of their deck. So if they were to draw goal cards, and if they draw 1 or 2, we'll pull up some cards and see. We have the bow. Oh, see, they have the majority in forests. We're already put into position to be able to score this. Now that makes for an interesting aspect of this game, and possibly a criticism, is that there is some luck of the draw on this when you're pulling off your goals. This just so happens that we have the majority in 3 forest areas. Well, actually 2, but all we'd have to do is, if we still had an action, be able to move 1 in there and be able to get into position to score that. So there's some things that you have to be prepared for in this game in terms of the luck. And we are also with the luck of the dice, but it's really interesting how this whole thing works over here. I find this to be very, very cool. How we can set up the board, and it's not a quick fix to be able to get those out. It's going to take a series of movements to clear out dice. So, if another moon comes back in here and says, something, I want to try to be in control of movement and not allowing a lot of movement around the board, slow movement. Keep dumping these moons in there, and not only does it affect myself as a player, but also the other players around, because if they're going to want to be able to affect the movement, they're going to have to put their dice there, and it's going to take a lot of work. They're going to have to sacrifice maybe some of the other actions and constantly keep moving at a slower pace. So I really think that that's cool, and I really like how this action selection works. Some other things that I do like about the game: I love the production quality of this game. I like the tiles. They're not real thick, but they're durable. They're not going to bend, which I like. And I like they got a kind of pretty smooth finish on the top. And then each of the player figures have different shapes. And so this is, I believe, more colorblind friendly because each of them have their own shape. And so that I find as a positive for players to play the game. The resource tokens, these are the standard ones that come in the base game, and they're adequate and functional, but if you want to see the upgraded ones, you're going to want to check out the video for Board Game Bling for Rise of Tribes, and I'll be showing you that as well. So this is basically the aspects of the game that I think are pretty cool. Some more things, definitely replayability with this is going to be high because of this variable board layout. We can change the configuration. I mean, one simple change in a setup like this, let's say for example it came out like this. Look at this configuration now. We have a whole chain of lakes along this side, and it's kind of interesting how this is all configured. We have all the lakes here, all the forests here, all the mountains. It's going to change that up quite a bit. We change, put something like this lake here, and you have this this goes here like this, and the forest, it's going to be a little bit different now, trying to gain majorities in the forest, because now you've got to go through the mountains to get to the other side to have 3. So you have, as these goal cards come out, we have different playing situations. So I think that's really, really cool. Rules are very well written, but there is one thing that I recommend that you print out, and that was on Board Game Geek. They actually have this Rise of Tribes event clarifications, and it goes into a little bit further description for these different event tiles and explaining specifically how some of them function. There's some really cool things, but one of them that a lot of times the players will question is this mammoth, and when he comes out, players can either decide to kill it for food or tame it, and they can gain victory points and they can move him around, but if he ever gets abandoned, then you're going to lose the points. So you're trying to bring this around, but you're also trying to make sure you have enough people to protect him to score points. It's worth 3 points, which is 1/5 of the way to victory. Let's see, what are some other things about the game? I think it's very approachable for families, and the other thing that I've played this at all the player counts, and I really like 4 the best, because in any type of area control game, the more people that are involved, the more interesting it is, because when you're trying to do things and you're taking actions and being aggressive towards other players, you have a chance to spread it around. And I find this one to be kind of weak at 2 players, because it's just back and forth. Like, I'm going to beat you up, you're going to beat me up. It's going to just be a slugfest going back and forth, and so it's really hard to take control. I just find this, but the board is also smaller. We'll scale down. But I also think that, like I said, with more players, I really think this is the best with 4 players. So some other neat things that come with the game that I want to show off. Let me grab the box here. There is the insert is very cool for this. So we have a space for the tiles. Right here would be where all of the tiles are stored, but for a 4-player game, we just have one less out, and then we also have the goal cards and player pieces for the teal player. And there's a space here that says Rise of Tribes. Underneath is a spot for the board, but when you actually have the upgraded components, it's the same size as this box. They will be able to fit in there. And then underneath here is a spot where we would have different things for the advanced game. Now we have some additional things that are in here. We have some tiles that you can swap out, and these all are described in the rule book, but essentially you can create your own scenarios or storylines by swapping out some of these tiles on the game board. Some of them are going to require more of your figures on there before you can gather up resources. So I think that's pretty neat. We also have these village elders that we can place out, and you can choose to deploy one of these on the board, and when you activate him, I think if he's in a space where there's a village, you can pay food, and you essentially can use developments from other players. But if he goes away, if he can be lost just like everybody else. But the really interesting aspect that you can do where it adds another layer of a player interaction, but you're actually trying to use their abilities. So I think that's neat. And then also we have these different tribal abilities. So, and they're double-sided. So for whichever tribe that you're playing, you're going to look at that side, and you're going to be able to, choose one of the actions or one of these abilities to be able to use. So it's going to give the game a little bit of asymmetrical aspect to it, and also for people who've been playing it for a little bit, is going to add a little bit more strategy. The more that you play the different tribes, you can mix and try to use the different abilities, because like I said, for each one you have two. So maybe one time when you're playing the tribe, I'm going to use light in the dark. If I play the Tonga again, next time you're going to use the hidden village, and which is really kind of cool, because this one says you can build your second village on your player board, safe from all conflicts. So, but if you never have, it says if your tribe is ever not on any hexes, remove this village. Meaning if they get wiped out, their village goes away too. But this is almost a guaranteed way to score 1 victory point every turn as long as you have people on the board. Really cool aspect to that. So, so that's an overview of the game itself. Really like Rise of Tribes. I think this is a great game for families to play. It doesn't take a long time to play. It's a blast. Like I said, there's a couple different things where you've got the random luck of the draw that you have to deal with, but overall the experience of playing the game I think is fun. I love the dice mechanisms up there. I like the replayability. I like the overall production value. So this is definitely one that I recommend, especially if you're a family and you're just getting into wanting to play an area control game it's fun. And like I said, really easy to teach and easy to play. Then you want to check out Rise of Tribes. All right, that's it for now. Like I said, make sure to check out the Board Game Bling episode for Rise of Tribes, where I show off the upgrade kit that's available for this. All right, thank you for watching, and we'll catch you again soon. Bye-bye.